Thanks very much. Hi, everybody. My name's Brian Stone. Once again, I'm an associate professor here in the Division of Industrial Design. Prior to joining NUS 3 years ago, I taught at Ohio State University in the United States, which is the biggest, baddest public university in the country. I have only done design as a profession. I actually started in high school as a sign painter, and then went to the University of the Arts and studied graphic design, worked in New York and Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. before I returned to school to pursue my master's degree at Ohio State University. And I've had the good fortune of teaching at several universities, not just in the United States, but also in Brazil, in Nicaragua, in Germany, in Taiwan, and of course now here in Singapore. When I was asked to do this, my colleague, Jennifer, said, "Brian, I'd like to do this with you." And I said, "Of course." And she said, "No, I just mean to sit in." And I said, "No, you're going to participate." All right, because we've worked in a sense in a partnership for some time. And this is really going to be the thread of the conversation that we want to have with you today. I know a lot of the tutors thus far have been very good about giving you definitions of what design is and thinking about theoretical positions or philosophies around design. And we want to talk a little more about the design in the sense of how we interact with one another as people. So with that, Jennifer, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I studied at DID and graduated in 2020. Yes, right during the COVID outbreak. So it was fun graduating at that time. Yeah, then after that, I got to work with Brian for a year as his teaching assistant in NUS before coming over to Ohio State to pursue my master's in design research and development. So unlike Brian, I did work something other than design. Before I come here, I was actually teaching piano during my time while I was studying in NUS. So yeah, that was maybe that helped a little in the way I teach when I was with Brian in NUS, and including now. So I'm also currently teaching in Ohio State as a graduate teaching associate, helping out with classes such as design fundamentals while I'm doing my master's thesis. Is there anything else I should add?
Yeah, so what we hope is once you finish your advanced degree, you will come back to Singapore and you will take over the Division of Industrial Design.
Just let me get through my master's first.
And remember, this session is being recorded.
Oh no.
Okay, so everyone, what I have planned is a presentation. It'll take 10 minutes because I want to set the context for not just what I've been doing, but the things that we want to talk about. And then we're going to open up the floor for a little dialogue. So let me begin. Please install the Zoom audio device, such and such and such. Okay, that's going to be a problem. I don't know what that is, asking for some prompt, but let me begin with this. Eventually, everything connects. People, ideas, objects. But it's the quality of the connections that's the key. And this is a quote that comes from Charles Eames. And as you begin to study design, you will come to know the work of Charles and Ray Eames, which is probably the most prolific design couple, at least in United States design history. I'm sure you were familiar with their work in terms of furniture, spaces, exhibitions, prefabricated buildings, water, and they've actually even done films. So I was always appreciative of the working relationship that these two partners had for decades. So what I want to begin with is, yes, there's lots of talk about design, but I think the most important thing in design education is that of the community, the design community, and what happens in the design studio, and how students work with one another, and how students work with multiple tutors or professors. I just want to show you a few things that I have been teaching. So I begin with a fundamentals course that focuses on visual literacy. It teaches the students how to see, how to perceive things in the world, how to look for opportunities, how to understand certain design principles as it relates to color interaction, hierarchy, Gestalt principles, typography, organization, etc. And that work ultimately culminates in a book of reflections that the students actually author and write notes about. And Jennifer was, of course, instrumental in helping me along in this studio. I also taught a course in signage and wayfinding, in which our students go out and they look for opportunities in the natural environment and create systems to help direct and inform people. We also did a platform or a course in tangible user interfaces. And this is, in fact, where I met Jennifer for the first time. And in this course, we were looking at physical interactions that ultimately led to digital information. And then Jennifer and her team actually designed this product, which is I find very important, which was about repetitive stress injury. So I want to caution everybody out there who's on the chat, be mindful of how much time you spend working on the computer. Make sure that you take breaks, make sure you exercise your hands and your wrists, and especially your eyes, because we don't want you to cause any particular level of damage. So what Jennifer and her colleagues did is they designed this system that sort of monitored and tracked your mouse movements, how many clicks you were doing, and then ultimately encouraged people to take breaks. We also work in the space of branding and identity. And philosophically, I'm very much into branding and identity as being kinetic entities, things that can move. They don't have to be these ultimately static things that nobody is able to touch. And in this case, this young lady did a project on a redesign for the Singapore Postal Museum. And then we also do a lot of work in the area of motion design. This case, motion design in the sense of storytelling. I won't show the whole video, but we have the students build a particular narrative.
Why are monsters scary? Monsters embody the other.
All right, and so in this, we're actually teaching the students not only the principles of motion design, but also how to storyboard out a narrative, how to write a script, how to direct voice talent, how to score music into a particular system, etc. And then this project is similar in the space of motion design, but it deals more with the visualization of data. And this one being about
why it's so hard
dating
to find
applications.
love, despite our connectivity. From the early 2000s to now, our dating lifestyle evolved immensely, where being a heterosexual and marrying someone was the norm. And now, sexuality and relationship preferences are just ways for people to explore their dating options. A list of more than 100 criteria to find the perfect partner, and a total of 67 noteworthy criteria was being filtered out and clustered into 7 big groups.
Okay, so that's just very quickly a few of the projects that I have our students do. I want to shift now to how we work. And I think this is one of the not only exciting things, but it's one of the unique experiences that you will have in studying design, let's say, versus some other particular area. We work in a studio. It's a big open space, lots of natural light, a lot of flexibility on how we move furniture around, how we cluster with one another. You see here, this case with Jennifer, working with one of our undergraduate students in a game design course that we had developed, actually at the encouragement of Jennifer. So there's a lot of discussion, a lot of tryouts, iterations, trial and error, a lot of experimentation and prototypes. And it's a lot of hands-on work, and it's a lot of heads down work. I wanted to show this one project because I think this project does a good summary of all the things that I think are important in design education. You see that there are two people working on this project. This project is called the 18 Levels of Hell. It was designed by Valeska and Rachel. They worked very closely with one another. And what was interesting in my observations is that they were very good at leveraging their individual strengths. So one student was very good at conceptualization, while the other was very good at prototyping. One was very good at illustrating. One was very good at managing graphics and typography. And you bring those skills together, and they were able to develop something very comprehensive. What I want to do is then show you the end result of their project, which is not only the introduction of the game that they had designed, but also a retrospective in their development process. And that is one of the most critical things in your design studies, right? Is the process that you go through and the things that you learn and modify and evaluate through each stage of the development process. So this is about a 5-minute video. It won't seem like it's 5 minutes. If you're squeamish or scare easy, you might want to look away, but that of course is just an invitation to compel you to watch a little more closely.
Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the realm of the living? Those of you who have passed first crossover into King Yendor's cliff here, be judged, receive your sentence, and prepare to suffer the hands of divine retribution. Are you ready? Welcome to the 18 levels of hell. Repent, sir. Let's see what hell has in store for you. Scared, anxious? It's your first time in hell after all. Navigate through the 18 levels of hell to atone for the sins you have committed. Experience the horrifying tortures of each hell to repent for all your sins, for making your way to Mongol to earn your chance at reincarnation. Let's begin. Choose a soul. Admit to your sins. What kind of sin are you? Time to repent. What hell will you do? How about the other way? Here, atone for your sin. What is the price you have to pay? But that's not all. Watch out for the other sins. Every hell only permits one sin. Fight for your chance to repent. Ready? Off you go, sin.
Hi, I'm Valeska.
And I'm Rachel, and we're the creators of the 18 Levels of Hell.
We were inspired by depictions of hell in Chinese mythology and thought, wouldn't it be an interesting concept? After some brainstorming sessions, we decided to go with the idea of creating a board game that would bring players through an immersive experience in hell. With that in mind, we dive straight into the prototyping of our initial ideas using cardboard.
Starting with the board layout, we wanted players to navigate through a 3D landscape to enhance their playing experience. We thought about how we could fit all 18 levels of hell as tiles on the board, resulting in a massive game stage. The unpracticality of its size led us to attempt to minimize the traveling and playing area.
As every hell has 8 specific punishments tailored for each unique sin, we had to ensure that players were able to draw punishment cards randomly while not having to go through the trouble of shuffling all 18 sets of cards. With every prototype, we varied elements like shape and size while experimenting with various ways to present the cards. Eventually, we settled on numbering the punishment cards and keeping them within compartmentalized containers, each representing one of the 18 levels of hell.
We also asked ourselves how to make this game experience a more cohesive one. We achieved this by replacing the dice with fortune sticks to fit the theme of our game.
For the final game, we chose wood as our main material, coupled with thick layers of bright paint to bring out the macabre and grotesque nature of tortures in hell.
After weeks of prototyping and refining game components, we present to you the 18 levels of hell.
In the 18 levels of hell, you have to challenge your fellow sinners and watch them suffer. Laugh at their plights and immerse yourself in the horrors of hell. Welcome, sinner.
Okay, so with that, I will take your questions as well as Jennifer, and then I have some questions for Jennifer also as our guest. But just before we move on, I want you to take note in that last project that they did at least 4 prototype iterations to get to that final form factor, and that we actually had people playing their game so they could make observations and then make modifications to the gameplay. So we were, of course, very pleased with what these 2 young ladies did in spite of the content. And by the way, they are 2 of the most gentle young ladies in our program. I know the content maybe would not imply that, but that's who they are. Okay, I've talked enough. Desiree, let's see if there's some questions out there.
So for all students, please feel free to type in any questions you have for both Brian and Jennifer into the chat. And perhaps in the meantime, while we wait for some questions, maybe just a general one from me about whether Brian or Jennifer, from the perspective of a professor as well as from that of a student, could you maybe describe how student life is like in DID? I mean, you mentioned a lot about design community, right, Brian? So yeah, maybe you could briefly describe how the DID design community is like.
I think the best thing for me to do is sign off the call and then let Jennifer answer that question, and then I'll come back. But Jennifer, you go ahead and take that one.
I think before I talk about myself as a student, I think I can talk about myself as like a teaching assistant, because I just wanted to show off. Oh my God, this trinket that Valeska and Rachel gave me after their 18 levels of hell project. So I think from that you can tell how like the relationship between like the students and like the teaching assistant and the professors is that they are very tight knit, and it's sometimes it feels more like I'm communicating with like a friend, like when I'm consulting Brian for anything. It felt very easy to talk about my project, or to share my thoughts, because the professors here are all very welcoming. They're always welcoming about your ideas. And I think going by like first name basis also help reduce all those anxiety when like I have to go to someone like higher up and propose my idea. Sometimes that can be really scary. So I think that really helps. As for myself with like my batch mates and also my juniors, I think one great thing is that those that I became really close friends since my year one are still my close friends now. I still talk to them even though I'm overseas with a terrible 13 hours time difference. I'm still in contact with most of my batch mates because we just spend so much time in studio together. Since like year one, we get to know each other. Year 2 and 3 with all those team projects. We see each other in studio all the time, helping each other with project, helping with all the testing, just giving general feedback. So even if we are not working in like the same team, it still feel like we are very close knit because of how much we just help each other with each other's project. And everyone's kind of working on different things, so you always get just different range of projects, and it just really helps you as a designer also because you are just exposed to so many different things. And even when we reach like the final year, when we all start working on our thesis and things like this, where it's mainly individual work, we are still very close because a lot of us just spend time working in studio. And even though it's individual, we still help out with each other, looking at each other's work, giving feedback, doing all the testing together. So I think this really just sums up like the design community in the sense that whether it's your teammates or not your teammates, we still help out with each other's work because we just want to see each other succeed in design. You know, we just want to see good works from other people, and it just and being able to test for other works is just so much fun because there's just so much idea flowing through. I see some questions in the chat. Do you want to maybe address that?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jennifer. So we have a question from AC asking about the aptitude-based admissions and whether there's any advice maybe from Brian on what to do if kind of the polytechnic score is not so good. I'm guessing, I'm not sure whether AC, I got your question right. Are you asking about the admissions interview and any advice on getting through that admissions interview? If you are, maybe Brian could share some.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you notice the last slide that I put up, it says ask ID at nus.edu.sg. And a lot of the specific admissions questions, my counterpart Nadira can give you all the details around that. But I can tell you specifically, your marks are your marks, right? And this is what you have. But that's not the only measure that we look for designers. What we're doing is we're looking for people that have a good aptitude for design, right? And what that means is, are they curious? Are they empathetic? Meaning, do they understand what their actual audience or user is actually going through and put themselves in that kind of situation? Can they innovate and come up with ideas that are useful and ideas that are desirable? And we sort of tease these things out in sort of the application and interview process that we go through. So I tell everybody, you know, once you go through your polytechnic or your JC, and these are your marks, don't worry about that. That's already done. What you should concern yourself with is, how do you make a good presentation on who you are and what you can do? I can tell you, when I applied for my master's program and I had to pull up my transcripts, I was actually surprised at my grades were not as good as I thought they were. But I focused on the other things that I was good at. And so that's how I would advise you, AC.
Okay, thanks for that, Brian. Jennifer, you have anything to add on about interviews or anything?
I think he covered pretty much, except maybe I can add on my experience of yeah, my grades weren't that good when I was trying to apply for my master's too. Yeah, so that was but I still got in because there are interviews. So if you manage to get yourself an interview, just remember that it's what's during the interview that matters, because that is where you shine and show what kind of designer you can be. Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to the image I showed with Charles and Ray Eames. And is this somebody that I can work with? Or is this somebody that I'm excited to work with? All right, so you should talk about not what you don't have. You should talk about what you do have. All right, so for instance, if you're good at photography, or if you're a good writer, and you've done poetry, or you build things, you should talk about those things. Let's amplify all the other stuff that you have, so we understand that you're a very well-rounded, energetic person that we think would be a great addition to our student body. Okay, keep them coming. Desiree, more questions.
Yep, thanks. I think I'm not sure whether this also answers the follow-up question from Gyok Ling about what we look out for in interviews. But if not, Gyok Ling, please feel free to elaborate on any specific things that you are asking for. So actually, just to move on to another question from Triman, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, they're asking if, projects like the 18 Levels of Hell game, has there been any project under maybe your guidance, Brian, that has been brought out to the marketplace or kind of built into reality?
The work that I do is around communication primarily, less so entrepreneurship and marketability. I do have one project at my previous university that a young lady designed called Sprout. It was a gardening application. I actually went in and helped her with that a little bit. She actually ended up commercializing that app. It was ultimately purchased for $3 million, I think is what the figure was. It just unfortunately put this young lady in a very high tax bracket. So don't get too excited that you put $3 million in your pocket, because the Internal Revenue Service wants their cut. But we have had we had success in that project, and I'm always willing to talk about the commercial possibilities of some of the things that our students do. I would also add professional practice is something that I do spend a fair amount of time talking about. It's not just commercializing your projects or your products and bringing them to market, but it's also how you interact with clients, how you charge for your services, how you negotiate contracts, how you write statements of work. All right, so that is just, bringing something to market is just only one part of being a professional designer, and those are the things that we will spend time talking about. Yeah, I know it's quiet, but sometimes I wonder, like, wow, I get to do this and then charge money for it at the end of the week. I mean, why would you not want to do that?
Yeah, thanks for that poignant answer, Brian. So I hope that answers your question. And moving on to the next one from Gyok Ling as well. They're asking whether, is there some generally, what does industrial design cover, and what are some future career prospects for graduates in DID?
Jennifer, you want to go first? Because this actually might take up the rest of our time.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. So I'm gonna assume you are asking about what we learn in industrial design and not what is industrial design, because I think that's a little bit different. So I'll talk about what we learn in industrial design. So actually the curriculum is really flexible in the sense that once you get to, so year one, you will be learning about design fundamentals, things that Brian showed just now on like the book, and a lot of other things from like different professors. And once you get to like year two, what you get to do is actually participate in like design projects with your seniors and your batchmate. And there are a range of projects for you to choose from. So I think Benjamin also provided a link on the chat, so you can go on there and see what are some projects that we have done, like what NUSDID have done. So every semester you can pick like 2 projects to do out of maybe like 16. I think it depends on what is being offered, and other professors that have different expertise. So the projects they provide are like for Brian, the case will be more focused on visual communications. Maybe from JJ, and of course will be more related to service design. Hans will be more related to product, more hands-on of like prototyping and things like this. So I feel like there will always be something that you are interested in every semester for you to try. And the best thing is that if you try something and you don't like it, and you know you don't like it, so you can just move on and try other things. So this whole 4 years in NUSDID is that you can just try and figure out what areas of design you are interested in. So I wouldn't say it's really just restricted to industrial design, but it's a great place for you to explore different forms of design and see what you excel in and what you really enjoy. I think Brian probably can add on.
Yeah, I'll go quickly. I want to specifically answer some things around the question about job prospects. And I tend to get myself in trouble when I say this, but I believe that industrial design as a label actually does us a bit of a disservice, because industrial design has a connotation of industrialized products. And we're doing far more than that. Yes, we do product design and we're very good at it. But we also have professors and students engaged in service design, visual communication, branding, interaction design, user experience design, motion design. They work in the domains of hospitality, healthcare, commerce, nonprofit, entrepreneurship. You know, it's really quite broad. And I would say that our program, Industrial Design, is one of the few programs that's actually expanding in its application range and not contracting like we're seeing in some of our other professions. What else do we have, Desiree? We had a great publication that just came out today that talked about salaries for budding designers, and those salary mean numbers have actually gone up. And
I'll
that's,
paste it in the link. I'll paste it in the chat.
see, that's very cool. Which means you're going to make more money when you graduate than Jennifer would have when she graduated.
Do not graduate during the COVID period. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Yeah, we have one new question from Priscilla, directed to Brian, asking what is one thing that you wish you knew and would have learned earlier if you had the chance to. It can be either a soft or hard skill. One thing you wish you knew earlier.
Can you turn off the recording? I will say when I graduated from my undergraduate degree, I was not prepared for the pace of professional practice. It's much, much faster. All right, in school, everything centers around an 11-week project or a 13-week project, and they're usually constrained to the semester. In professional practice, it might be constrained to Friday that you have to have it done. So I wish, kind of on reflection, that I had been a little more prepared for that. But like everybody else, you learn on the job, you make the adjustments, and you accelerate your work, and then you're in good shape. So with that, if you have an opportunity to do an internship and see how things actually run in that environment, that would actually be very, very helpful. And as an aside, if you can't do or are not interested in doing an internship, then I would encourage you to do a study abroad experience. Right, Jennifer? It's nothing like getting dropped in North America right in the middle of winter and then having to figure everything out, right? You will be much better prepared in the future having gone through that experience.
Yeah, it's raining now, so it's even colder. It's not fun.
Okay, we have another question from Yok Bing. Perhaps maybe Jennifer can take this. They're asking about what is some aspects that you like and dislike about being in the DID course when you were a student.
Like I mean there's lots of things to like about being in this course. One that I think I mentioned just now is about the community. I think Ryan just joined the chat. Yeah, he's one of my first friend in ID, and I'm still talking to him. So I think it's really like the friends you meet, like the community, and like being able to share like ideas with others. And also how flexible things are there. I can just I can pick whatever I want to learn about. If I don't like it, I move on and I try something else until I find something I like to do. So that's what I like about DID. What I dislike about DID, I guess the workload, how much time I spend on it, and probably ruin my sleep cycle because I'm not the most organized person. I procrastinate a lot, so things keeps getting like delayed, and I just end up staying up and doing my work. So and I was very involved in hall life, so that took up lots of time also. So yeah, the workload and just I guess just in general like how stressful it and how fast paced things are. That sometimes I really want to catch a breather, but I couldn't. But this is something that you just over time you get to learn and you get to adapt to it. Even though you are not used to it right at the beginning. I think by the end of when you're in like year 3 or year 4, you probably just got used to it and you can just go about and do things late at night and get through the weeks peacefully. Yeah.
And maybe I'll talk about a reality that we should not avoid. And that is you look at these university documents and they'll say, well, you know, you have a 4-credit course, which means that you should spend this many hours outside of class for homework assignments. And let's say that's 4 hours or 6 hours, whatever it ends up being. Well, you can do that and you can pass the course, but it's unlikely that you will excel as a designer, right? Because what's happening is that students are constantly raising the bar because their work is constantly improving. They're developing more skills, they're getting more awareness, they're building more creative confidence because they're spending more time on their work. So I think about it more in the sense of an investment, right? So if you invest $1, you're not going to get much of a return. If you invest $10, you'll get more. If you invest $100, you'll get even more. And that's what it's like in terms of investing your time. And I'll be frank, sometimes it doesn't feel good, you know, when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're still working on your project. But the reward is actually to be able to develop something like some of the project samples that we showed earlier, because all of those students just a year prior were not capable of doing that kind of work. 2 years prior, they couldn't even envision themselves doing that kind of work. And now that they reflect and see what they're able to make, it actually then helps them build even more momentum in terms of what they're going to make for their fourth year thesis and then what they can do professionally. So that is just a reality of studying any of the creative arts, whether it's design or theater or dance or music. This is something that just comes with the territory. Okay, Desiree, how are we going to bring the mood back up?
We should.
I know. This is enough. It was like, what do you like and dislike about? And every now and then we bring this guy to the studio. He comes and hangs out with us. He won't look at the camera though. Oh, there he goes. This is our favorite terrier. All right, get out of here.
Okay, I think for now, looking at the time, we have maybe some time for one last question. So if any student, if you would like to just unmute yourself or turn on your video just to ask the question directly, that would be great. If not, then we can, in the meantime, wait for perhaps one last question in the chat. We see a lot of appreciation for your dog. Yeah, any last questions from the students?
All right, I have then some closing remarks. No problem. I should let everybody know that industrial design, the Division of Industrial Design, is part of a larger College of Design and Engineering. And they are having an open house over the next 2 weeks. They're having an e-open house on the 27th. So if you just go online, do a quick Google search on CDE open house and register for that. There's going to be more talks and more presentations related to industrial design. So maybe things that I have not answered, or Ki Hong a few days ago, or Christian a few days before that. There's yet another opportunity to ask questions and see more work. So I encourage you to do that. And then also, Jennifer, you've heard me say this. I don't know why anybody would want to study something other than design, because it's such a dynamic field. All right. You will never, ever get bored, because every project is different. Every client is different. Every audience that you are working in service of is different. So you are constantly challenged, and it's a creative endeavor. And at the end of the day, people by and large are very appreciative of the work that you do, whether it is two-dimensional, three-dimensional, tangible, virtual, or spatial. So go out there, build your creative confidence, and have a good time. That's my speech.
Thanks, Brian. Any closing words from you, Jennifer?
I just want to wish everyone all the best for the application, and good luck for the interview. I guess if you really want to be in design, just really give it your all and show like the professors why you deserve it, and like the good qualities that Brian mentioned just now. So be confident of yourself. You should do fine. And you'll be in good hands when you join NUSDID. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Yes, we have pasted some links into the chat for those of you who want to check it out. The link to the CDE open house that is happening this Sunday. Brian has also put in the email address that you can email to if you have any specific questions about admin or admissions, applications, things like that. I've also just pasted our Telegram group chat link that you can join if you haven't already. A bunch of our current students, alumni, and some tutors are on that chat. So if you want to directly reach out to them there and ask some questions, you may also do so. But yeah, if not, I think that is the end of today's Q&A session. We look forward to seeing some of you this Sunday. And we also do actually have another Q&A session with Patrick Chia happening this Saturday at 2 p.m. So do join us there. And then, of course, we will blast out all the information on our relevant social media as well as Telegram group. So yes, thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.